Welcome to our 2020 legislative update. I am Bridget Lake, president of the Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce. First, I would like to begin by recognizing our trustees. A Budgetary Service, Advent Health, Citizens Bank of Florida, City of Oviedo, City of Winter Springs, Duke Energy, Eclat Law, Fairwinds Credit Union, Modern Plumbing, Orlando Health, Oviedo City Church, Oviedo Mall, Oviedo Medical Center, Palm Tree Tech Center. We'd also like to recognize our partners in progress, 419 Metal and Auto Recycling, Platinum Signs and Design, and our media partners, Falconics, Gizmo Productions, L Media, Look Local Magazine, Orlando Business Journal, Oviedo TV, Socoto Films, Oviedo Winter Springs Life, and our friends of the Chamber, CareSpot Urgent Care, Orlando Health, Cavallari Gourmet, Collins Dental, District Eat and Play, Edwards Financial Service, Fast Signs of Orlando, Insight Credit Union, ITI Engineering, Dean Arthur Associates, James Evans, the Real Estate Celt, Kilgore Perlman, Legends of Winter Springs, Miller's Ale House Oviedo, Mid-Florida Cancer Centers, Orlando Health Physician Associates, Orlando Sanford International Airport, Oviedo Brewing, Oviedo YMCA, Partiki Group at NAI Real Vest, Oviedo, Pedigo Oviedo, Rockin' Brews Oviedo, Seminole County Tax Collector, Seminole County Property Appraiser David Johnson, Seminole State College. Our sponsor today, ServPro of Oviedo Winter Springs, the Real Estate Boulevard, Tuscarora Nursing and Rehabilitation Center, and University of Central Florida, UPS Store, 3457, Verizon Wireless. And that wraps up our Friends of the Chamber. I would like to talk about our Chamber announcements. Just 2 days ago, we had our East Side Regional Hobnob. If you missed it, you can watch it on Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. And here are the candidates' answers to if you had a theme song for your campaign, what would it be and why? Some really interesting answers there. Not only that, but check out esrhobnob.com to see our candidates' one-on-one videos so you can get to know them better and some of their Q&As. Vote for your favorite candidates in our ESR Hobnob fundraiser straw poll. In fact, why don't we show the video? Now it's time to learn how to vote. That's right, you go to esrhobnob.com. I'm actually going to share my screen so you can see the website. You go to the Vote tab. Voting is actually open right now until July 8th at noon. If you do not have a voting code, you simply go to Vote the Ballot with no code. You're able to make your selections on who you would like to vote for. As I said, voting is open now until July 8th. You vote early, vote often. You may vote the ballot as many times as you would like. Corporate packages are available. You'll put in your credit card information right there and click submit. If you do have a coupon code, you go to the Vote tab and you click on the Have a Code selection. So here you will make your selections on who you would like to vote for, and then you submit your coupon code. The whole entire code, starting with the $5 with all the digits and numbers. After that, you enter one code at a time and click Add Cart after you've made all your selections. So as I said, voting is open now. Vote early, vote often. Voting ends July 8th at noon. Thank you. Now, you know that it is a fundraiser for the chamber when you say vote early and vote often, because never can you really say that. Now, we also have some really great events coming up, and we're looking for a few additional committee members to get involved. our Winter Springs Festival of the Arts Committee happening on October 17th and 18th, and our golf tournament on November 20th. Please reach out to us if you're interested in participating in either. And now, let's give a huge thank you to our sponsor, Seminole State College. Today's sponsor remarks will be presented by Dr. Lorenz, President of Seminole State College.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry. I was muted and then unmuted. So thank you very much, Bridget. I'm so happy to be here joining all of you today. Happy 4th of July. I hope that you're all looking forward to a restful long weekend. You know, at Seminole State College, we were really fortunate that our largest fundraiser of the year occurred before COVID-19 came onto the scene with gusto. It was on February 29th, Leap Day, and our theme was, what if you had one more day? And right now I'd like to share a video with you where we asked students what they would do if they had one more day.
My name's Shelby. I'm a nursing student, and if I had one more day, I would volunteer at a children's hospital.
If I had one more game, I'll hit over the fence.
I'm an accounting student, and if I had to take one more class, I would attempt chemistry.
If I had another game, I would make another top 10 play.
If I had one more day, I'd sleep.
My name's Amari. I'm a student athlete here at Seminole State, and if I had one more practice, I would go the extra mile.
I would spend my time spreading awareness for people living with disabilities, because as someone who has a disability, I really know what it's like.
If I had it my way, I'd be on the other side of the camera. I could be a boom operator for you.
My name is Christina. I'm a cellist, and if I had one more day, I'd play another solo.
If I had one more day, I would make an early tea time.
My name is Demian.
My name is Daryl.
If I have one more day, I will spend it working on my car.
And I will help them.
I am a law enforcement recruit here at Seminole State College, and if I had one more day, I would embrace change.
If I had one more scholarship, I would stay for my bachelor's degree.
So as you know, things changed dramatically just 2 weeks later, and seeing that video makes me pine even more for being back on campus with our students. But like everyone else, we had to change operations very quickly and move all of our instruction, all of our services to the online and remote environment. We have created now our Safe Return to Campus Fall Plan. As you can see on the screen, we have several phases of our plan to reopen. We do think that this fall at the start, we'll probably have about 30% of our classes being held on campus or in some hybrid format with a portion of the class being held on campus, and 70% will remain online. Those being prioritized to return to campus are programs that train first responders, fire academy, public safety, etc., our nursing program, respiratory therapy, other allied health programs, and then those classes that have required labs. The summer classes are in session right now and are offered in online or remote formats. Just this past week, we began to reopen our public safety and fire academy and EMS programs. We know that there are such great needs in our community for people in those fields. So we're working hard to get them back to campus safely. The Safe Reopening Task Force has done amazing work. We had over 70 employees and students involved in multiple subcommittees. We did a student survey and an employee survey and have reviewed all of the guidance from every organization that's been published and consulted with health professionals as well. So our focus is really to continue offering an outstanding education to our students and get them making degree progress so that they can realize their goals, but we have to do it all safely. So that's really been a focus for us these past 2 months, really. Next slide. Oh, sorry, I just talked about this. This is just highlighting again those hands-on face-to-face courses, and you can see an image of students there. We are requiring face coverings on campus, which of course is in alignment with Seminole County as well. Next slide. So another thing that you've probably heard about in the news is the CARES Act. And this has brought benefit to higher education, particularly our students. Seminole State was awarded a little over $8.1 million from the federal government through this act. About 50% of that is required to go directly to students. We cannot use it to pay off balances they may have at the institution. It just is money that's going directly to students. And in alignment with the act itself, the intent and spirit and guidance that we've received, we are prioritizing that those funds go to students with the greatest financial need first. And we are using the regular infrastructure of financial aid in order to do that. And that is based on Pell eligibility and expected family contributions. You can see here for our spring and summer 2020 students who meet those eligibility requirements, they had a one-time disbursement of $700 or $350 based on their need. And then we will do that again in the fall. We do anticipate that the impact to people's families and employment will be sustained over many months. So we have a year to spend this money and therefore decided to extend it into the fall semester using the same guidelines, but a lower disbursement because of the sustained impact, but we felt that the more immediate impact in spring and summer necessitated a higher disbursement. And as of June 30th, we've dispersed almost $2 million to 2,906 students. It's very important. It makes a big difference to our students, and we're happy to do it. And I really want to thank all of the people at the college who've worked really hard to make this happen very quickly. Next slide. So people are very curious about our enrollment, and I can say our summer enrollment is very healthy. It is up more than 6% as compared to last summer. Our fall enrollment is now ongoing, and we don't have quite the same day-to-day comparison just yet because we're a little bit early in the process, but it's looking really healthy. And we know that there are many high school graduates out there who are potentially reconsidering their higher education options for fall. And first-time in college students may be reconsidering those college plans. So we want to invite them to stay closer to home and take advantage of everything that Seminole State College has to offer. You know, we talk about Seminole State and the Florida college system where you can get all the credit at about half the price. So students who come to a Florida State College for the first 2 years pay about half of what they would at a university. And our online programs and on-campus programs have very high success rates. It's a seamless transfer from us to UCF and multiple other universities in the state and across the country. So we hope that students will consider that when considering their fall plans. Our faculty and staff, of course, will be here to help, and whether that's on campus or virtually, and we're really excited to welcome people back this fall. Next slide. So now to the topic of the day. I wanted to start by thanking our delegation for their support of the Florida college system and in particular Seminole State College during this legislative session. You all have heard that the budget was just approved the other day, and Governor DeSantis had warned us all that the vetoes would be significant, and they were. But Seminole State was able to retain 3 PICO projects that are so critical to our campus and our students because of the advocacy and support of Representative Plakon, who sponsored our Building G project, Representative Smith, who sponsored our Building V project, and Senator Simmons, who supported all 3 of our projects, including the final installment for the remodel of Building L, which was one of our largest, most important, and oldest buildings on the Sanford Lake Mary campus. It is amazing to be able to get 3 PICO projects under any circumstances, but to be able to retain those in this kind of environment is amazing. And I just cannot thank all of you enough for your ongoing support of the college. And again, these projects will make a huge difference to our campus and to our students. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that, the state of Florida received CARES Act money as well. And Governor DeSantis has worked with the Department of Education to ensure that a significant portion of that CARES money comes to our education system. And one area in particular that I wanted to mention that Seminole State College will be operating with is a rapid credentialing program. $35 million has been designated to the 28 Florida colleges as well as the technical centers to create rapid credentials to help people get back to work quickly. So these are programs that students can complete in less than 18 weeks. And obviously there's significant financial support for the institution to stand those up and get them operating, and also for students themselves. So please look out for those opportunities in the near future. We'll be announcing very soon what those programs will be and how people can take advantage of it. We feel that, the Florida college system are really economic first responders. We're able to get people training quickly and get them back to work in fields that are in demand. And in addition, we help to diversify our local economy. So as a community, we're able to sustain economic impacts well into the future. And so all of that is very important to Seminole State, and we're very grateful to the governor and the commissioner and their consideration of the role that the Florida college system can play in this really challenging time. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Bridget. Thank you again so much for having me today, and I hope that everybody enjoys the legislative update.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lorenz. She's the president of Seminole State College. What a great update. Now, let me introduce today's panelists. We have with us Representative Joy Goff-Marcil. She was born and raised in Florida House District 30. She holds a bachelor's degree from Florida State University and a Juris Doctorate from Stetson College of Law. She practices wills and probate and has been married to Dr. Richard Marcil, a counseling psychologist for 26 years. Together, they have 3 children who have been raised in the district. Joy served 2 terms on the Maitland City Council and was elected by her peers to serve as vice mayor in 2017. She was elected in November 2018 to proudly serve the people of Florida House District 30. How are you doing today, Representative Goff-Marcil?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have Representative Scott Plakon, who serves as a member in the Florida House of Representatives. He was elected in November of 2014 and proudly serves his constituents in House District 29. He previously served in the House from 2008 to 2012 as well, and Scott serves as chairman of the Local, Federal, and Veteran Affairs Subcommittee and serves on the Government Accountability Committee, Judiciary Committee, Justice Appropriations Subcommittee, and the Tourism and Gaming Control Subcommittee. He attended Stetson University and received his Bachelor's of Science degree in psychology. Over the last several years, Scott has become known for his strong champion for the fight to end Alzheimer's disease. Thank you, Representative Plakon, for attending today. How are you doing?
Thank you, and it's great to be with you again.
Yes, it was good. I just saw you a couple days ago at our East Side Regional Hobnob. Good to see you again.
And likewise, yeah, with the interview, I think it's 3 times in the last week. So it's good to be with you again.
Thank you. And next we have Representative David Smith, who was elected to the Florida House of Representatives in 2018. He represents the citizens of Florida House District 28. The district covers most of Seminole County and includes Geneva, Chileota, Winter Springs, Oviedo, and parts of Castleberry, Longwood, and Sanford. He is a retired U.S. Marine colonel and lives in Winter Springs. For the last 10 years, he has worked in Central Florida's simulation and training industry, and he currently owns a business consulting company. Thank you, Representative Smith, for attending today. And again, thank you for joining us a couple days ago at the Eastside Regional Hobnob. How are you doing?
Doing well, Bridget. It's great to be with you. And again, what a great job on the Hobnob. If people that are on the chamber call today didn't get to see that, I would strongly recommend they take the time and watch the video, and I think they'll get a kick out of it too. It was a lot of fun and technically worked quite well.
Thank you so much. Now, before we get into our Q&A, anyone is able, as an attendee today, to type a question in the Q&A chat box. I just want to make sure that that is available to everyone. If somebody wants to do a test run on that and just test in the Q&A chat box. And since this is our legislative update, let's really dig into the last session. Let's give a quick synopsis of what happened this last session. Let's start with Representative Goff-Marcil.
Okay, hi. Yes, well, it seems like it's been years since the last session. So you want a quick update. There were a lot of bills that were presented that were taking, expanding the scope of medical coverage. So the physician assistant bill, the nurse anesthetist, it's a hard word to say. All these bills were coming in front of us that would expand the scope of practice for providers. Then there was also the E-Verify bill that went through, which I am not in support of because it was, and I don't know if you're going to be getting into more details on all these bills, so I'm not sure exactly what you want me to do as far as a overview of everything. But there was a lot of bills that went through. Can you give me a little more guidance on how you want me to present this? Because this is like you just want an overview of.
We do. And why don't we, since there will probably be a lot of questions.
Yes.
Why don't we just go representative to representative? We'll let each one take a little stab at it, and then we'll go through the Q&As, because there's probably a lot of Q&As that people do have questions on. So we'll move on to Representative Scott Plakon. The order is in which we introduced you. Representative Scott Plakon, why don't you give us a quick synopsis of what happened in the last session?
Well, thanks. Happy to. Well, I thought it was a very successful session. We ended on day 60 and come back a few days later to pass out the budget, which was passed in a bipartisan way. But we didn't know what was coming of months people being confined at home and the whole COVID pandemic. So thankfully, our legislature, unlike some other states, had reserved $4 billion over the past few years, which is about 12% of our general revenue. So we have quite a piggy bank there to sustain this pandemic. I would say probably more than, there's very few states that could probably claim that percentage of our revenues that we put in a rainy day fund. So, you know, there's been talk about bringing us back for a special session. There's no need, because we have billions of dollars in the bank and we have been paying off debt. That's what Florida is what fiscal responsibility looks like. In terms of, you know, normally in these updates, we talk about our own things we've done too, but before I do that, we were able to give $500 million of raises to teachers. Now teachers start at over $47,000 a year in our state. So new teachers will start there, and there's $100 million for other teachers that are currently in the system. Representative Goff-Marcil talked about expanding the scope for advanced practice nurses. Now they'll be able to operate autonomously to help reduce the strain on the overall healthcare system. Here in Orlando, the governor and Secretary Beshears of professional regulation did a deregathon before session. So we deregulated a number of industries, cut red tape, eliminated government permission for like boxing announcers and one or two other things. You shouldn't need government permission to be a boxing announcer. In terms of this is my 10th session. Yesterday, the law went into effect. Now in Florida, if you commit a sex offense on a minor in our state, as of yesterday, there is no more statute of limitations. So if you come to our state or in our state and you hurt a minor in that way, you will have to look over your shoulder the rest of your life wondering if that day they knock or break your door down and take you away for a long time. There was 11 different laws that affected that. So we thought we'd make it simple for these sex offenders. If they're under 18, stay away. So we think that's going to help a lot of children in our state. I was proud to work with Senator Stewart in Orlando, a Democrat, and Representative Tracy Davis as my House co-sponsor. We jointly sponsored the bill. In terms of appropriations, I was able to get 12 appropriations bills to the governor's desk. So a couple hours before the press conference the other day, I get a call from the guy at the governor's office saying, and this is normal to tell you, by the way, heads up, we're going to be vetoing these things. Just don't want you to read about it in the news. And then I said, okay, I'm ready. Deal the pain, Tyler. Let's go. And he said, well, representatives, it looks like you have one of the highest percentage of getting through. Of the 12 appropriations requests that I filed that made it to the governor, 11 of them he signed. Only one got vetoed. And I was quite frankly surprised myself with $1 billion in cuts. And one of those projects was for Seminole State College. But there's a water project for $750,000 for Lake Monroe. Another water project, a watershed project for $350,000. I had several Alzheimer's appropriations. $3 million for the boys and girls clubs. Juvenile drug court, $260,000. The Seminole Sheriff opioid program, $400,000. And a few other things. So I was actually surprised. So I would have, part of it being the legislature is part team sport, part with the Republicans as a team, then also on certain bipartisan issues, the legislature as a whole. But it's also individual sport. That's the way I look at it. You have your own project. So I think as a team, we did very well this year, set up the state for what's ahead. And on my kind of individual sport, I think it was the best I've had of 10 sessions.
That is awesome to hear. Thank you so much for the update. And we are moving on to Representative David Smith. Why don't you give us a quick update on the legislative session? Let's make sure we hit perfect.
Unmute and then unmute again. Well, I won't go over the same ground covered by Scott and Joy, but I thought it was a very good session, only my second. So I did 2019 and then 2020, but it was very effective. A very pro-business session with some of the deregulation, other things that we did, lowering the business rent tax. There was quite a few other things that were business friendly. E-Verify passed. Other thing was significant healthcare reform, and we've talked about nurse anesthetists, but also for pharmacists to allow them to expand what they can do. There was a couple other things with the patient surveys to make patients more confident that the doctors that they're seeing are the best that they can go to, and then all the safety information is out there. Expansion of telemedicine, which is going to be critical in the mental health space in our schools. So when you think about what are we doing about teenage suicide and the stresses and strains of coronavirus when kids go back to school, I tell you, telehealth, telemental health is going to play a big role in that. We expanded that this past session. A couple other things that were done that we have not touched on that, and I cannot emphasize this enough, that Senator Simmons has just been the elder statesman in Florida for environmental efforts, and particularly clean water and restoration of springs, restoration of Lake Okeechobee and the Everglades. And of course, we know we have the headwaters up here in Central Florida, but $690 million going into that type of restoration. Water is the single major factor in how Florida will grow throughout our future. And we took bold steps led by Governor DeSantis, but with Lions champions like Senator Simmons also. And I was happy that many of my member projects, I didn't get as many as Rep. Plakon, but 6 of my 9 projects were approved through the budget, and many of those were clean water projects right here in Seminole County, and I was happy to get that done. There was also significant legislation for our most vulnerable. We put money into the foster care system. It made advances for adoptions to help cover the cost of adoptions. We passed new legislation on the guardianship program for those elderly that have guardians to take care of them because there's been abuse. So we quickly, the legislature really took action to fix some of the things that were brought to our attention. Probably no more important is the committee that I sit on is Public Integrity and Ethics. And we had just some terrible, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Abuse of money being pilfered, millions of dollars from the Coalition Against Domestic Violence here in Florida, where executives lined their pockets with millions of dollars that should have gone to services. And I can guarantee you that there have been battered women and people that have been hurt because they didn't get the services. And we took steps this legislative session to strip that organization of their funding and put it under Department of Children and Family Services. So the legislature's taking action. And a lot of times you see that reflected in the budget, but whether it's tax-free holidays for the back to school or disaster preparedness because we come into hurricane season, or deregulation or healthcare, mental health, supporting our firefighters and law enforcement. The legislature covered a lot of ground this session. I thought it was very successful. And when you think about it, Bridget, 3,758 bills got filed. And we all have seen Schoolhouse Rock on how a bill becomes a law, but 3,758 were filed. Only 207 made it to the governor's desk. And I'm proud to say 4 of those policy bills were mine. But if you can get up to Tallahassee and you roll up your sleeves and work hard, you can make a difference for your constituents and for every Floridian. And I'm proud to be serving the people of Seminole County in House District 28.
Thank you so much, Representative Smith. And now, Representative Joy Goff-Marcil, we're going to re-round over back to you. And I also have a question in for you also. The first one is, what is your most defining contribution to your district to date? If you would like to do an update of the legislative session and also answer, what is your most defining contribution to your district to date? Also, since that is one of the questions from one of our attendees.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. One of my favorite bills that I sponsored was a bill that would make it where healthcare workers who fall behind on their student loans would not have their license taken away. And one of my colleagues in the House also had a very similar bill, so I ended up jumping on his bill. But that bill passed bipartisan. We all worked together to have that bill pass, and that was a great bill, especially with what we've been experiencing with the pandemic. We do not want to have healthcare workers losing their license, especially since they still have to pay their student loans. They just were not getting their license taken away. So that was an excellent bill that I was proud to co-sponsor and work hard on. And as far as my contribution to this district, I am continuously fighting for the people and for their unemployment rights, as far as the unemployment system that was completely inefficient and continues to have serious problems. My staff has been working day and night trying to help constituents who lost their job due to COVID-19 to get their unemployment benefits. So we have been working hard trying to get them through that process and that system, which we need to work on. That's something that my colleagues and I called for a special session to try to get that system working. Millions of dollars were spent to get that system set up, and it was set up in a way to make it very difficult for people to get their benefits that they paid for. So I'm very proud of how my staff and I have handled the situation that we're in right now, and also how I fought for all the majority of people when we were up at session. Even though, as Representative Smith said, I would say most of the bills were bipartisan that passed. I would say that, but the ones that were contentious, they needed someone up there to fight and have a more balanced way to look at a more balanced perspective when deciding the laws that are affecting the majority of people.
Thank you. And here's another question that we have, and this is for all the panelists that we have today. How many of the bills were you the prime? Oh, she took away the question. How many of the bills were you the primary sponsor on? I'm going to try to pull this out of my head. Were you the primary sponsor on, and that were passed? I'm guessing now that were passed. Do you want to retype that? Okay, so Representative Smith says 4. Representative Smith said, how many of the bills were you the primary sponsor on and they were passed?
Oh, is that for me?
That's for all of the representatives on the panel today. So Representative Smith said 4.
Oh, okay. So I have the one that I was working on that was similar. So it's essentially the same bill. The one that the other representative had was, it actually covered more agencies. So I preferred his as well. So I jumped on his. That was Representative Nick Duran. And then I also had a massage therapy bill that was actually ended up being put into another bill, but it passed all the committees, and it had a loophole where human traffickers were using the apprenticeship to get a massage therapy certification. They were using that to get human trafficking in. So this bill closed the loophole and took out the apprenticeship. So now in order to become a massage therapist, you have to go through a certified school, a school that is certified, and get your certification. And that's all under, you get the fingerprinting and all that. So you can see how that was a way to get rid of human trafficking.
Okay, Representative Plakon?
Yeah, I just referred to of my 12 appropriations requests, 11, those are 3000 series bill numbers, we call them. 11 of the 12 passed. Member bills, offhand, I file bills in a lot of different ways, sometimes prime co-sponsoring with Democrats, but 3 that are notable would be the one that I mentioned about the statute of limitations for sex offenses against minors. I would call that my really landmark legislation that a lot of people work very hard on. We called it Donna's Law for a woman here in Orlando that was molested by her chorus teacher here in Central Florida. And over the years, they found out several young ladies, the same thing happened to, but the statute of limitations had ended, so there was nothing they could do. This guy they confronted at a restaurant, even admitted that he knew he did it, but there was like nothing he could do. And also, I believe as representatives, like number of the appropriations projects I got through, we represent our community. So we pass statewide things that affect the whole state, like Donna's Law, for example. But Sheriff Lehman came to me saying that they have a problem with contraband in the jail here. And then I've also become friends with Mark Inch, the Secretary of the Prison System. And so we put together legislation to update the contraband statutes. For example, one of the features was hemp. People would bring hemp into Seminole County Jail or the prison system. It looks just like marijuana. So we banned hemp from going in there because there's no way they can tell the difference between hemp and marijuana, and certainly don't want marijuana in our correctional facilities. Another proud achievement that was a 2-session job is the session before I passed a bill called non-opioid alternatives. And I'm starting with the nurse anesthetist, I still can't say that word, but they came to me and told me that there are alternatives to opioids. Of course, we know for pain management, but you can put somebody under all-day anesthesia without using opioids. This is the only approach that I'm aware of, is proactively addressing the opioid crisis before something bad happens. So now in the state of Florida, if you're going for anesthesia or pain management, there's a sort of disclaimer that the doctor has to let you know, and there's a brochure that you don't have to have those opioids. You can do the same thing without. So we think it'll help people from becoming addicted in the first place. And for people that had an addiction problem in the past, the last thing you do is go take more opioids as part of the medical procedure. So 2 sessions ago, we passed, or before this, we passed the primary bill. In this session, we found out that it included hospice. So we sort of carved out hospice. So I'm very, very proud that that's, I believe, going to save lives and pain to families. So those are just a few that I would say are notable.
And I'm going to start with Representative Joy Goff-Marcil on this question. Which veto were you saddest about? Were you most sad about?
I would say the most saddest I was about is the taking away from the Sadowski Fund. That was one of the accomplishments that I was most happy about, was that fund was almost fully funded after it had been raided for years, and it was in the budget, passed unanimously, and then the governor vetoed a lot of the funding. And what's even more sad is that in this time of unemployment and uncertainty, even more people were not able to get affordable housing. And so this was where I think the money should have stayed for sure in that. So yes, that's most sad. And then also a lot of the virtual education learning was vetoed, the money for that. And that was another something that we needed during COVID-19. We need virtual learning. We've been having virtual learning a lot of, everything switched to that and for the foreseeable future. So I was upset about that as well.
And same question for Representative David Smith. Which veto were you most sad about? Let's make sure that we unmute Representative Smith.
There we go. Well, I would have said Sadowski, but the federal CARES Act dollar replaces the money that the governor vetoed. But I was a champion of affordable housing in Sadowski also. So if that's kind of backfilled with federal dollars, one of my member projects that I have been a vocal advocate for was greater vocational training in our Seminole County schools. And I had an appropriation that was made it through the process for Seminole high schools to get more vocational training money, and that got vetoed. So we'll come back and fight for that. I mean, I went to a VOTEC high school, learned to weld and worked my way through college and graduated debt-free because I had a trade. And so I'm a big believer in vocational training, and Seminole County does a great job. But I was really trying to get them a little bit more money to expand their program, but the governor schwacked it, but we'll come back for more money next year.
Thank you. And same question for Representative Scott Plakon.
Well, the Affordable Housing Fund, as Representative Smith said, the governor actually in his statement said that with the pandemic, those funds were helpful to not have to cut other things when they were backfilled by the federal government. So we ended up, I believe, in about the same place. It was just a little bit of legislative acrobatics so that money was replaced by federal dollars, so we wouldn't have to cut other things. In terms of policy bills, I've joked around with friends, I don't do vetoes. It's my 10th session because I try to work with the governor's office as the process goes along. So if there's a veto, there's a way to see it coming. Not always. I think I've got one policy over 10 sessions vetoed. So in terms of this is just 2 days ago, so I haven't had a chance to review the whole budget and all the vetoes. Of course, I was 11 for 12. I would have loved to have it 12 for 12, but the governor vetoed a project that I had to create a 3.6-mile trail between Volusia and Seminole County trails for $500,000. But I would have to admit, at this point with $1 billion in vetoes and the pandemic, I probably would have vetoed that too myself, quite honestly. There's more important priorities than that right now.
I'm going to stay with Representative Plakon here, and I'm going to combine two questions. Representative Plakon is a major advocate for Alzheimer's and dementia. Please share some highlights of the current related approved legislation. And then also, Representative Plakon, can you please tell us a little bit about the sniffer dog, which carries your last name?
Well, I was very proud of that. It's one of the appropriations. And what Bridget's referring to, I was married for 33 years to Susie, who died at age 57 in 2018 of Alzheimer's disease. So that's been a big impact on our family. I do have to share the bright news, as Bridget and many know. I got remarried last year to Rachel, and she's wonderful. And her family has also been affected by Alzheimer's disease. So this year we were up, in fact, I forgot to mention this on the bills that personally passed. We created a position called Alzheimer's Director in state government that will be working across all the state agencies to help coordinate, to help the 580,000 families in our state that are suffering. But the 580,000 families, but with all the caregivers, it affects over 1 million people. So I was very proud of that. I call it the Alzheimer's Czar. And it really demonstrates the governor's commitment and the Secretary of Elder Affairs to address this. When the Secretary of Elder Affairs got appointed last year, 3 days later, he came to my office in Tallahassee. He was aware of our story, and he said, I want to make this the biggest priority of my agency, and can you help me with your story? So my late wife's legacy has really impacted state government. I also this year was able to get $100,000 for the brain bank. This is a little uncomfortable to talk about, but families can donate the brain of their deceased loved one, and it really helps her research to find a cure one day. And we did that with my late wife. And her being a young Alzheimer's victim is actually will provide a lot of insight into maybe help somebody else in the future. For I think the 3rd year in a row, I got this year $319,000 for the Brain Bus, which is a purple bus that goes all around the state, mainly underserved areas, and helps educate and bring greater awareness. Now, lastly, the Bloodhound. I got an appropriation for a group called Scent Evidence, and in our family's experience, Susie several times wandered off as part of Alzheimer's. So this group trains bloodhounds and works with law enforcement around the state to find people with Alzheimer's and occasionally other disabilities that wander off and get lost, or people very elderly. So they trained 4 new dogs this year. And the guy that put it on called me about 6 months ago, and they named one in honor of my late wife Susie called Daisy. That was her favorite flower. And at the beginning of last month, Alzheimer's Awareness Month, it's called the longest day, Rachel, my wife, and I were in Tallahassee with Daisy, and this group did a fundraiser for Alzheimer's from all over the world for 20 days, different people that have bloodhounds. And Rachel and I were honored to kick off that 20-day event where they raised money for Alzheimer's. And there's a video of it with us walking. And you probably can imagine the feeling of my late wife's impact, and there with Rachel, who I'm so happy to be able to share this together and perpetuate this legacy that's helping a lot of people.
Thank you so much for talking about that. Next, I'm going to go to Representative Smith. Assuming that the available revenue is going to take a hit next year, what is your highest priority to make it into the budget?
Well, is a great question. As Scott mentioned earlier, the state, so we just passed fiscal year. So we have all the 30 June and previous, all those state operating bills are handled with monies that were not spent in last fiscal year. So 1 July starts our fiscal year, and obviously the impact of COVID, we could have some significant revenue shortfalls. So absent any federal intervention for giving us revenue replacement money, we do have a strong balance sheet of money and reserves to handle that. So I don't think there's going to be the significant bloodletting budgetary coming up in the future, just because we do have those reserves and we've taken steps to pass a balanced budget that the governor just signed. But I think you're going to have to continue to, in my mind now, statewide, not member projects. My main member projects are to help Seminole County. But if you look statewide, I think we have to maintain our commitment to education, not only in higher education, but in K through 12, because we still need to do more for veteran teachers. When you start to look at what impacts business and the growth of business in Florida, it's oftentimes the business leaders that I speak to, it's workforce development, workforce training. So you've got to have those kids coming up through K through 12 that get that robust education they need to either go on to college or a career or into some trade. So we've got to maintain our commitment to education in Florida. That would be my budgetary priority in the 2021 session.
Thank you. And on to Representative Goff-Marcil. Last sessions, there were bills submitted that attempted to erode municipality home rule. Do you think that trend will continue in the upcoming session?
Yes, unfortunately, I do think it is a trend because now there's a whole committee that hears those bills. Yes, and that is one of the reasons that I ran for office and am running again, because I was on the city council and I watched all these bills coming down to our city, forcing our city to, some of them are unfunded mandates, some of them are just taking away the power of the local people, such as the canopy laws. I just had an actual example of that happen in my neighborhood where two over 200-year-old live oak trees were taken down, and normally the city would be involved with that, but because of the law that was passed at the state level, the city had no say and the neighbors had no say, and these gorgeous trees went down without any consideration for the local people and the local rights. So yes, I do think that trend will continue, and that's one of the ways I'm helping our district up there is fighting these laws that assault on the home rule.
Well, thank you. I want to be respectful of everyone's time and make sure that you do check out esrhobnob.com if you haven't, to get to know our candidates both in Orange and Seminole County. But I do want to ask for one last summary. Is there any last comments that you would like to say Representative Joy Goff-Marcil, why don't you add any last minute comments, please?
I would just like to say you can check out my website at joyforflorida.com, joyforfl.com, and that says everything that I stand for and everything that I'm fighting for in Tallahassee. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And on to Representative David Smith. Any last comments that we have just to wrap up today?
Thank you, Bridget. Again, people can take a look at my website, which is electsmith28.com, or follow me on Facebook to get more day-to-day things that we're doing. I'm going to get that website updated with my 4 policy bills signed by the governor this session, and we'll talk a little bit about the 9 appropriations that I got funded for Seminole County. But I tell you what I really want to thank people for is the assistance that they gave me helping lead the local effort to have Governor DeSantis veto Senate Bill 410, which, although it would have been a very narrow opportunity, could have potentially threatened the rural boundary of Seminole County. And we got geared up and got over 12,000 people across the state, many of them from right here in Seminole County, though, to email and call the governor and veto the growth management bill. Had some very sneaky bad language in it that could have impacted our rural boundary, but the governor listened to reason and the arguments we laid out to him, and he vetoed the bill. And I want to thank everybody that helped me get that bill vetoed.
Thank you so much, Representative David Smith. And last but not least, Representative Scott Plakon, any last comments that you would like to add?
Well, yeah, again, thanks for putting this on again, and it's good to be able to do this again. I think my takeaway from this session would be, again, this striking contrast between states like our state and states like New York, Illinois, and California. Here, we have a AAA stable bond rating. Here in Florida, we reserved $4 billion for a rainy day, and we are in a rainy day right now that looks like it may be raining for a while. Some of these fiscally irresponsible states, in light of the pandemic, they are going to have a really hard time. They're, of course, asking for federal bailouts, and I hope our congressional delegation will stand against that unless it's evenly divided upon the states. I hope the federal government doesn't bail out irresponsibility from some of these states from times before the pandemic. New York is about the same size, actually slightly smaller than Florida. Their state budget is almost double ours, because when the politicians up there, when people go to them for anything, they just give it to them and tax their citizens. I suspect, particularly the New York City area, a lot will be moving down here in light of this. And even our governor's handle of the virus. Look at, again, New York. New York has about 10 times the deaths that we have here in Florida, because he has handled it in such a way where we're doing the best we can to keep people safe, protecting in the nursing homes, which has been key, where in New York, again, they have 10 times the death. Have we handled it perfectly? Probably not. This is once in a 100-year event. But I'm proud of our government and how we've handled before this and during this crisis. And I'm looking forward, God willing, to be back next year to this pandemic's going to be with us for a while, and a bunch of things are going to change, including our unemployment system. So I'm hoping to be next year to continue to tackle these problems.
Thank you so much, Representative Scott Plakon. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. That is our 2020 legislative wrap-up. I am Bridget Lake, president of the Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce. If you haven't checked out esrhobnob.com or seen the live recorded event on our Facebook page at Oviedo Winter Springs Regional Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, you should really check it out. I'll see everyone later. Have a great day.